are trying to figure out what you were briefed on and when. And so there's a paragraph here. PCO searched its holdings, engaged security and intelligence partners to identify instances when briefings on suspected FI in the 2019 general election were provided. That identified a single PCO information note dated January 14th, 2020, which is the one that we've seen earlier, and then it references the February 9th, 2021 briefing. Is that consistent with your recollection of when you were briefed on these issues?
Sorry, this note of November 30th, 2022 was when we were asking, okay, there have been all these leaks on, what may have happened during the 2019 election, and we were asking, were these things we got briefed on? Were these things that we were flagged at that time?
And the February 9th, 2021 briefing. So all I'm asking is whether that's consistent with your recollection of when you were briefed on these issues.
But I wasn't. These were requests. I made a request to our National Security and Intelligence Advisor because there were things being alleged in the leaks that we had not been briefed on. So I'm not entirely certain about the briefing dates there.
So I guess maybe my question wasn't clear. The content of this particular document, I'm not asking you about, except just to confirm that this is consistent with your recollection of when you were briefed, the January 2020 and the February 2021.
January 2020
was the memo that we looked at earlier.
Sorry, that was the David Morrison memo?
Right.
I never read the David Morrison memo to my recollection. I got briefed on the contents, which was basically that foreign interference was lower than expected and the elections were free and fair in 2019. Though I did not read that. I did not receive that January 24th note because I'd already been briefed on its entire contents.
Okay.
And then the February 9th, 2021 note was the phone brief that we spoke about earlier, yes.
I guess that goes back to your point about oral briefings are what really get to you, not necessarily the written ones. Do these notes help shed any light on what was dealt with in that briefing for you, Prime Minister? Do they seem familiar?
Yes, I think the 1, 2, 3 indicates the different examples that we were, or the situations, or actually there are cases that we were talking about, or individuals we were talking about. And the bragging is not doing definitely helps me recall a part of the conversation where there was, let me be careful how I say this so it's not identifiable. There was
We've got an incredible show for you tonight.
Is someone coming?
Please stay tuned as we attempt to make you the demo. What do you think when this is filmed?
Don't you want to hear the next bit of the story?
foreign government official based in Canada who was taking credit for a certain thing having happened in Canada in their reporting to a superior or to their home country. And just the fact that a foreign official was taking credit for having delivered a particular outcome in no way meant that anything that particular official did actually created the outcome. say, see, look what I did, aren't I good? We got the outcome we wanted, perhaps.
Go on to say, Prime Minister, that you remembered asking whether the service understood that busing is part of the nomination process. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And again, going back to the reporting I just showed you, there's obviously a reference to busing there. But what I want to suggest to you is that the emphasis, again, wasn't on the mode of travel for these people. They took buses this time, all right. They could have come some other way, and it wouldn't terribly matter for the services perspective because their concern was that they were directed by PRC and assisted in getting to the nomination place in order to allegedly help one candidate over another. So the way they got there doesn't matter one way or another. I understand your point that you wanted to make sure that CSIS understood that buses per se are not a problem. But my proposition to you, sir, is that when you read that statement, the emphasis is on direction by China. Yes, they got there by buses. That's the allegation. They could have got there by tricycles. It doesn't terribly matter. The point is they were directed by China.
I would suggest that it might be more difficult for a foreign actor to organize fleets of individuals showing up on tricycles rather than filling them into a bus.
Do you accept, first, that there were irregularities in that nomination contest, and secondly, that they were likely tied to the PRC consulate in Toronto?
I'd suggest that irregularities being observed is not itself enough to overturn a democratic event. And I'd also suggest that a well-grounded suspicion is certainly warranting more reflection and follow-ups, but also might not hit the necessarily very high threshold for overturning the result of a democratic event.
Yes, but I don't think that's what Mr. Johnson is speaking to. He's just saying that there is a well-grounded suspicion that the irregularities, which he seems to have found, were tied to the consulate. And what I want to know is, do you accept those conclusions today?
Yeah, sorry, if you're not asking me about how I accept that there is a suspicion that PRC officials in Canada were engaged in some way with that nomination. I can't speak to irregularities. Perhaps you know what irregularities specifically Mr. Johnson was talking about?
No, not as well as some people in this room. We've heard evidence and seen evidence in this inquiry that at least one of the conversations between Mr. Dong and the PRC General Consul General in Toronto was intercepted and monitored, that it touched upon the two Michaels in some respect, and that at least a summary of the intercepted conversation exists. And I have a couple of questions for you regarding this intercepted conversation.
Just before my friend does, I'm not sure whether the details the assertion he's making is one that can be found in the public record, but I'm happy to hear from him about that. I would urge him to refer to the topical summary on this issue.
I'm going to come to the topical summary, but if I could ask the Prime Minister generally, when were you first made aware that Mr. Dong had been having conversations with the PRC Consul General regarding the two Michaels?
Welcome to Super Delivery, your premier destination for wholesale shopping. Let's dive into what makes us extraordinary. Designed for retailers and business owners, Super Delivery is a leading Japanese wholesale e-marketplace with over 1,600 Japanese suppliers and an existing membership of over 250,000 worldwide buyers. Explore our collection of more than 740,000 items for unique products that set your business apart. What are you looking for? Traditional kitchenware and crafts? Cutesy character merchandise?
documents that refer to the meetings that I can talk about publicly, the various briefings that I've had when these allegations came out. I believe this was the source. This was a matter disclosed in the leaks in the fall of 2022, and it was only subsequent to those leaks that I became aware of those conversations. So it would have been late in 2022. Saw the President of China, Xi Jinping, at the opening ceremonies. I mentioned to him that I needed China to stop interfering in Canadian democratic processes, because that was very much something that people were very concerned about back home at that particular moment.
So this is actually a summary about both 2019 and 2021. The more germane one may be 2021. Can you scroll down to the information page? Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So what this summarizes, you'll see, is expressions of partisan preferences by certain PRC officials in Canada. And what it says about 2019 is that it was reporting that some PRC officials expressed political preferences which were party agnostic and opportunist at a riding level. So then scrolling down, please, again, Mr. Clerk. In 2021, there was reporting that some individual PRC officials in Canada made comments expressing a preference for a Liberal Party minority government. The rationale was they don't perceive any of the political parties as being particularly pro-China, but perceived minority governments as being more limited in terms of enacting anti-China policies. So this reporting of an expressed preference by certain PRC officials for a Liberal minority, was that something of which you were aware at the time?
No. As I said, both the 2019 and 2021 elections happened in a context of significant tensions between our government and the government of the People's Republic of China, particularly over the illegal and arbitrary detention of two Canadian citizens, the two Michaels. We were extremely active both in pushing back at Chinese officials on this issue, but also, as I said, active around the world in drumming up support for people, for different countries, for the two Michaels, but also support for an initiative we were taking around arbitrary detention and how it shouldn't be used as a tool of political pressure or achieving political goals. So, I can certainly say that while individual officials may well have expressed a preference or another, the impression we got and consistently would get is that the actual People's Republic of China would have no it just would seem very improbable that the Chinese government itself would have a preference in the election.
So I take it from this that whatever intelligence reporting there was on that, it did not reach your ears.
No.
Okay.
Did you know that the best way to make an extra income on Amazon is not by setting up an online store?
Senator Hawley, you're recognized for your question.